Part 25. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 244. Strength 1.1, Agility 1.0, Constitution 1.2, Intelligence 0.6, Potential 1872%, possess the qualification of Silver Lantern Technician. What surprised him even more was the skill bar below. Precision Cartography, uninitiated. 3 levels in total. Behind this line, there is a light red symbol emerging, which is the basic condition for using attribute points to improve. Garen did not see the symbol at first, because even the skill of precision cartography was gray and could not be improved. He quickly set his sight on this light red symbol and stayed there for 3 seconds. A line of meaning suddenly emerged in his mind. Study conditions for entry-level precision cartography: Intelligence 0.6, Physique 1.1, Agility 1.0, Strength 1.0. Only then did Garen realize that the quality of his body was simply too poor to meet the entry requirements. If he wants to study simply according to the traditional way, he will only be able to meet this condition after learning the theory, going through a lot of practice, and gradually adapting his body. And this is just the entry-level level, which takes at least half a year. As expected of a Silver Lantern Master, he actually has requirements for all 4 attributes. Without hesitation, Garen immediately turned his attention to the precise drawing. The skill word moved slightly, and suddenly became blurry. When it became clear again, it had changed. Precision Cartography, entry level. 3 levels in total: Beginner, Master, Master. A stream of cool air immediately flowed out of his brain and flowed into Garen's arms and hands. He stretched out his hands and moved them a little. He suddenly felt unusually calm and dexterous, and his reaction speed suddenly increased to a new level. According to what the handbook says, it will take at least half a year to reach this level. During this period, you need to continue to practice a lot and understand. He nodded with satisfaction. Every Silver Lantern Master is a master of precision drawing. Only by reaching the master level can the basic learning of the Silver Lantern Master be truly started, that is, the mastery of techniques. Prior to this, countless preparatory Silver Lantern Masters were constantly honing this basic skill, that is, honing precision drawing. Slowly getting out of the bathtub, Garen dried his body with a towel, put on his bathrobe, stood there with his eyes closed and slowly moved his body. Standing in the room, he performed a set of the most basic Bioon fighting skills. Bioon's fighting skills, which should have been like a white elephant, almost changed at this time. After combining the fighting skills of the god statue Kung Fu, it became a fighting technique similar to that based on palm skills. East King's Hand. Garen stabbed forward with both palms, and there were 2 stabbing sounds in the air. A trace of transparent cyclone condensed a little bit, and then dissipated immediately. He shook his head and stopped in disappointment. It seems that I still can't use the real secret skill. Since his last life, he has integrated many fighting skills and created the 4 most powerful secret techniques. They are Dong Wang Xiao, Zifeng Fist, Nanchuang Fist, and Bai Hua Qin Yun Xiao. These are his 4 strongest moves, which combine all the essence of his martial arts understanding and are the pinnacle of his secret martial arts. As for the other various boxing techniques and secret martial arts, if used in combination, their power will be significantly different. This is the structure of his martial arts. The first and strongest are 4 moves. The second is the superimposed boxing technique of secret martial arts, such as Hong Yu. All things are flowing. This kind of secret martial arts effect of the red jade palm is simultaneously promoted by the rushing flow of all things. The third is to use various fighting skills at will. Among them, the Wangxiang martial arts, which is a fusion of Bianmen martial arts, is the strongest, namely the 3 styles of Wangxiang rushing. Finally, there are ordinary tricks, such as grappling hands, combination punches, palm knives, etc. Garen sat at the desk and gently wrote a few lines on the white paper with a pen. 4 levels first, secret skills second, secret martial arts third, ordinary skills fourth, tips. Since I started practicing martial arts at Baiun sect, I have not lost any of my opponents except Xianfran. Garen's eyes were solemn, recalling the 2 battles with Palasha, and he felt an inexplicable emotion in his heart. My Wu can't only be at this level. There was a trace of unwillingness in his heart. The difference in power between my Wu and Silver Lantern Master is really too big. One is to mobilize external forces, and the other is to rely on one's own strength. Just like the martial artists and immortals in Chinese legends. The difference is huge. Garen suddenly had a sudden impulse and began to list on paper all the secret martial arts techniques he had learned. The 4 secret skills are ranked first. These 4 moves are already a perfect combination of secret martial arts and fighting skills. Each move contains extremely complex and subtle chi, blood, and force skills. And it's the most suitable move for Galleons. It would be impossible for anyone else to learn it, even if he taught me step by step. Jialong has been practicing martial arts for so long and has accumulated countless experiences. He was unwilling to accept that Mai Wu suddenly became vulnerable. This time he finally broke out and kept analyzing and enumerating on paper. He listed any possible ways to explore. More than half an hour later, Garen sighed and put down his pen helplessly. Looking at the dense white paper in front of him, he suddenly felt uninterested. Is there really no way out? He murmured to himself. He stood up, opened the window, and let the cool night breeze hang on his body. He suddenly felt excited and refreshed. There may not be a way. A thought flashed through his mind. He looked up at the full moon in the sky, and the disappointment in his eyes gradually calmed down. I have now returned to the 3rd level of my martial arts. It is better than before. Then, according to the comparison of the handwritten notes, he took out the handwritten notes given to him by his teacher Aining from the drawer. The light yellow paper is full of dense black characters, which were all written word by the teacher Aining. Garen turned directly back to the last few pages of notes. I saw clearly written above. Silver Lantern Master's strength is strictly hierarchical, but for you now, understanding this is meaningless. Let me record for you the levels that our Silver Lantern Masters divide ordinary mortals into. We, the Silver Lantern Masters, call ourselves the Silver level, and those below are the mortal level. This is a division of ordinary people. There are 4 levels of mortals: Master, General, Soldier, and Soldier. The soldier level can be worth 10 people, the soldier level can be worth 100 people, and the general level can be worth 500 people, but they are divided into different types, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. A Grand Master can defeat 1,000 people, completely outperform generals, and is not afraid of any environmental conditions. He is the strongest mortal peak. It is also the limit that mortals can reach. The Silver Lantern Master, on the other hand, is theoretically not affected by mortals and is invincible. The attack cost of non-Silver Lantern Masters is very small, almost negligible. You can ask your father to confirm this. Only the Silver Lantern Master who completely completes his totem and ignites the silver light can truly enter the silver level. Until then, don't be exposed. One final note at the end. Don't tell your father that you are learning from me, and don't forget your oath. When you finish your studies, it will also be the time when I repay your life-saving grace. Garen closed the note. He knew why the teacher reminded him like this. Regardless of his reasons, Aining learned from him the way of a Silver Lantern Master. He didn't care about any other reasons either. He just regarded this learning as an exchange transaction. Maybe there were other reasons that made him take a little more care of himself, and he also considered some details. But in the end, this is just an exchange of favors. Putting aside these thoughts, he began to evaluate his own strength according to the records in the notebook. If we follow the division above, then when I was at the peak of my godly statue skills, I would be equivalent to the Grandmaster level above, which is also the peak of the mortal level. But now that I have only recovered a little bit, I am still only at the soldier level. He knew how many people there were, and the standard he used was trained elite soldiers. The elite soldiers in this world are stronger than those in the previous world. The strength he can use now, even if he adds secret techniques, is only equivalent to the military level. Like the blue-scaled snakes that day, they could only deal with 3 at most. Not to mention the rank of sergeant above the qualitative change, and the rank of general and grandmaster in front. Even the 2 capable men under his father Vindman were only at the peak of the rank of non-commissioned officers, and there was still a long way to go before reaching the rank of general. Is it just the military level, the lowest level? Garen looked at his hands, feeling the strength and blood that was constantly recovering in them. That is the soul's ability to transform the structure of the body. This is a slow and irreversible process. Because it is a qualitative change from scratch, it takes very slow time. It's so weak, but it's too fast. If all 3 medicines here are used up, my physical fitness will be restored soon. I just can't use many abilities due to my physical fitness. As long as I reach the threshold, my strength will be restored. Cut. He looked back at the completely clear bath water. As long as all 3 doses of medicine are used up and absorbed completely, you should be able to return to a good height. At least you are no longer at the military level. Next, it will be a matter of hard work. In the northern part of the Green Forest province, in a forest somewhere in the mountains. Nighttime. Outside a manor owned by Guy Lassie, on a forest slope somewhere, a woman in green clothes was slowly walking out. She is like a ranger in the jungle, everything on her body is green or dark green. Completely integrated with the surroundings, exceptionally harmonious. The woman is about 20 years old, with a slender figure. She looks like an aristocratic girl on a safari, sexy and charming. He was wearing an aristocratic green top with lantern sleeves and a green yarmulke with a white feather on the top. She was wearing a light green mini skirt, and her slender legs were wrapped in green lace stockings. A small section of white thigh was exposed between the stockings and skirt. The woman wears a green veil on her face, and carries a wavy green long bow on her back. The quiver hangs behind her waist, concealed and convenient. She looked up at the manor from a distance. Under the night, the manor was lit up with yellow firelight. The woman raised her right hand, raised her little finger, and brought the blue metal ring she was wearing to her lips. "I'm already here," she whispered into the ring. The accent is not native to Green Forest, but has a slight rising tone at the end, making it sound like singing. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 245. After saying this, the woman waited quietly in the woods. Within a few minutes, a black figure emerged from the dense forest in the direction of the manor. "Did the branch send you here this time? Are the manpower so scarce now?" the Black Shadow asked with some dissatisfaction. "I'm sorry, Your Excellency. We are the only ones in the branch who are somewhat free now." The woman in green lowered her head and replied respectfully. "Your application is not at the right time, as most of the forces have been transferred. Forget it, you green shadows are actually not that bad. You're just not very good at the tasks I asked." "Sorry, I wasn't looking down on you just now." Black Shadow's tone softened slightly. "I understand. Just forgive me." The woman in green still lowered her head, showing no expression. "The situation in Green Forest is not very good now. Several big lords have bad intentions. I need you to defeat a gang of thieves head-on as a deterrent to show your strength." "Are you confident?" Black Shadow asked in a low voice. "That's no problem. But those who can use us must not be ordinary thieves, right?" The green-shaded woman raised her head and asked. "Of course, this wave of thieves makes a lot of profits every year, but they all disappear. We suspect that they are the controlling force behind a certain big lord." In terms of strength, they are estimated to have 2 generals, and unknown foreign aid cannot be ruled out, Black Shadow answered. No problem. Please give us the specific target later, the green-shaded woman nodded. Be careful, there is probably a Silver Lantern Master behind them, the Black Shadow warned in a low voice. The green-shaded woman narrowed her eyes and nodded slightly. The Black Shadow was about to turn around, but suddenly stopped again. There's another little thing. Send someone to test Vindman. Suddenly, a familiar figure flashed through her mind. Let's try his son Ahashia first. The Vindmen are experienced and I always feel that they are hiding something. Yes, the green-shaded woman lowered her head in response. If Vindman is just a strong man on the outside, he needs to rearrange his plan. I heard that 2 Silver Lantern Masters clashed in his territory last time. Vindman happened to be injured during the experiment and was not discovered in time. His son was almost also affected. Go in. This time, I want to see if he is really injured. If he is not strong enough, as a warning, kill his son, the Black Shadow said lightly. Don't get caught. No. The green-shaded woman watched the Black Shadow disappear into the darkness, and the footsteps gradually faded away until they completely disappeared. Except for TIAs, all the others will be dispatched to suppress the bandits this time, she said softly, as if she was speaking to the others. I'll ride on you to deal with the 2 generals, and you try your best to eliminate all the bandits. Since the liaison doesn't like us, we have to show her the actual results. Yes, several people's voices suddenly sounded behind her, including men and women, old and young. TIAs, the green-shaded woman turned and looked behind her. Go and test Vindman Manor, be careful. I know, eldest sister, a dark green shadow replied in the shadows, with a clear and cold voice. She was obviously a young woman. Don't worry, we are archers. As long as we don't get close, even Vindman can't stop me from escaping without preparation. Just a low-level general, a disdainful female voice came from the darkness on one side. Without the weakening dust, you're just a bug in front of the Silver Lantern Master. Mind yourself, TIA snorted coldly. She turned around and walked away quickly. Until he completely left the position where the eldest sister and captain was. Only then did she stop. Laugh. She plunged the knife into the tree trunk in front of her, causing the leaves to fall straight down. I will kill you one day, she whispered viciously. 2 days later. Wow. Garen got out of the tub, his naked upper body covered in light green liquid. He wiped his face, took the black towel and dried his hair and upper body, and got out of the tub. The sunlight shines through the curtains, projected through the gaps, and falls on the ground to form a golden line, which is particularly dazzling. There were spilled water stains everywhere on the floor in the bedroom, and the strong smell of medicine made the whole room a bit stuffy. Garen picked up the water glass on one side and drank a full glass of cold water, feeling much better immediately. After tidying up my things a little, I asked the maid to empty the tub of water. He stood there and checked his physical condition. The attributes are slowly increasing. As long as the effect of the medicine is fully absorbed in another day, you should be able to completely return to a higher physical quality. Garen clenched his fists, feeling that the energy and blood in his body were unobstructed, and he had a faint feeling of being at the peak of his previous life. I suddenly felt reassured. He absorbed all 3 doses of the medicine in 2 days, and his physical fitness also recovered greatly. These are just weeds in the eyes of the locals. After a certain amount of training and blending, it can be turned into a powerful bodybuilding liquid. He looked at the body attribute bar below his field of vision. Strength 1.4, agility 1.3, constitution 1.4, intelligence 0.9, potential 1772%, possess the qualification of Silver Lantern Technician. There are still medicinal properties that haven't been fully absorbed, so it should be able to improve a bit in a short period of time. Jia Long estimated in his mind that the efficacy of this ancient prescription is very mild, and when it improves, In conjunction with his natural recovery, the improvement is visible to the naked eye in 2 days. Number. If this speed continues, it will take less than a month to completely restore all physical fitness. As long as my strength and physique reach 1.5 or above, I will be able to initially use the secret martial arts superimposed fighting skills. I have recovered more than half of my strength. He moved his body slightly now, and his physical fitness at this time can only support the strength of a sergeant at most. Unable to play them all. After tidying up the room, Garen strode out of the bedroom and headed downstairs. Today, my cousin came over to talk to Vindman about something. His body had a big fight with Sophie Hathaway last time and said a lot of hurtful words. Vindman asked him to take the initiative to apologize to his cousin this time. After leaving the small building, Galen quickly arrived in front of the Vindman building in the center. A female soldier in white leather armor was already guarding the door. She seemed to be my cousin's companion. When Garen walked into the building, the female soldier glanced at him a few more times. In the lobby on the first floor, Vindman and Hathaway were sitting on the sofas separately. Vindman seemed to be asking Hathaway about a topic. The two heard footsteps and saw Galen walking in. The smile on Hathaway's face suddenly fell silent. Cousin Garen took the initiative to say hello, looking hesitant. "You came. I haven't seen you for many days," Shia Hathaway sighed, looking at Garen with a hint of helplessness in his eyes. She had watched Shia grow up, and she had the best relationship with her since she was a child. Although what she said last time was a bit irritating, it was just an angry word. She didn't take the child's angry words to heart, after all. She hit him first. "I came here this time because I heard from Marlene that Shia has become more and more sensible recently. She doesn't go to the casino as much and doesn't play around. She has calmed down." He was originally planning to teach Shia a lesson and let him know that trouble comes from his mouth. Now seeing Shia's subdued performance, Hathaway suddenly felt soft. Galen saw the look in her eyes and knew immediately that Hathaway had relented. "It was my fault, sister. Last time I was too angry." He lowered his head and made a sincere gesture. "It's good that you know you were wrong." Hathaway stood up, walked to Galen, reached out and gently rubbed his hair, which was still as soft as when he was a child. "You have grown up and are no longer the child you used to be. I heard from Marlene that you finally don't go to the casino anymore, so I feel relieved. I promise, I will never mess around like before again," Garen said seriously, raising his hand. "A few days ago, I suddenly realized that it is really meaningless to continue living in mediocrity for the rest of my life." "That's good." Windman, who was sitting on the side, nodded, his serious face softening slightly. "I have never heard you say such a thing. It seems that you really want to start your life again." "I'm serious," Garen replied calmly. "Just don't disappoint your cousin." Vindman took a sip of the coffee in the cup, stood up and went upstairs. "You two can have a good chat. I won't get involved in the topic of young people. I'll come back later. If you need to go out for something, you can have your own dinner without waiting for me." "Got it." Galen and Hathaway replied together. Watching the Viscount go upstairs, the two of them sat down on the sofa. Hathaway asked in detail about Galleon's recent situation and found out that he hadn't gone out to fool around recently, and his face suddenly smiled a lot more. The two chatted with each other about interesting things around them, and Hathaway also mentioned that she wanted to appreciate Galen's new work, which Galen immediately declined. "Taking that thing out once is a shame." After sitting for more than 2 hours, Hathaway gave Galen a small model of a knight's sword, which can be placed on the desk as a decorative gadget. Then he got up and left the manor with another female soldier. He looked very happy when he left. Garen also breathed a sigh of relief. This time he had successfully completed most of the changes in his personality. You don't need to be too disguised in the future. Otherwise, it would be very stressful to keep pretending to be a low IQ child. It's just that the change needs to happen slowly and cannot happen overnight. When he came out of Vindman building, it was already getting late, and it was almost afternoon. Garen went back to his bedroom, closed the door, and started restorative training in fighting skills and secret martial arts as usual. The strength that was being restored every moment made him feel calmer and more stable. The speed of learning precision drawing is also rapidly increasing. Now, he has reached a very high entry-level level without using his power potential points. He only needs some time to learn various basic drawing methods before he can enter the second stage, the master level. In a few days, when the physical fitness returns to 1.5 in strength and constitution, you can safely use the level of secret martial arts superimposed fighting skills, which is equivalent to the level of generals in this world. It is indeed a 1,000-year-old medicine, and it is really not ordinary. So strong, Garen sighed in his heart. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 246. Outside Terry Jones Manor, a dark green slender figure was standing in the woods on the slope. This is a young woman wearing a green tight skirt. She has an ordinary face, but has a curvy figure. With her tight waist, she looks extremely seductive. She carried 5 black feathered arrows on her back and held a black longbow in her hand. She stared at Terry Jones Manor from a distance with cold eyes. The afternoon light fell on her right side, reflecting a faint green light. She slowly knelt down and lightly pricked the grass at her feet with her dagger, making a mark. Then he stood up, turned around and quickly disappeared into the shade of the trees, disappearing in a few leaps. 2 days later, early morning. A black carriage slowly drove out of Terry Jones Manor and headed towards Black Flower Mountain. The carriage was pulled by 2 black horses and moved quickly through the sea of green trees without any pause. The car window was half open, revealing the young man sitting inside. He has short blonde hair, a handsome face, and a light, healthy white skin. He looked a little sleepy, leaning against the car window with his chin in one hand, as if he was dozing off. In the woods nearby, a pair of light blue eyes slowly watched the carriage move. As the carriage got further and further away, the owner of the eyes also moved quickly at the same speed, following the carriage. TIAs followed the carriage closely. She quickly moved and jumped behind the trees. Each time, she was just hidden behind the tree trunks and entered the blind spot of the carriage's sight. The movement is like a light civet cat, making no sound, even the grass is rarely disturbed. She pressed one hand on the outside of her thigh, and the black stockings she wore on her legs had a row of tiny black needles pinned to them. While moving quickly, the black needle pinned the hem of the green skirt and stockings together without being blown up by the moving wind. One person and one carriage moved side by side, and from time to time other carriages passed by. They rested for a while, and then continued on the road. Soon, more than an hour later, the carriage turned into a slightly secluded lane. The carriages on the road were almost invisible, only farmers and mountain people occasionally walking by the roadside carrying firewood. The carriage drove to the end of the lane and finally stopped. The car door opened, and the young man in the car jumped out and said a few words to the driver. Then a tall man wearing black plate armor got out of the car. The two of them walked slowly into the dense forest in front of the driveway, one behind the other. TIAs frowned slightly, and slowly pulled out a black needle from the hem of her skirt. "We're almost out of Vindman's warning range here," she murmured in a low voice and slowly moved towards the dense forest the two of them entered. Garen carefully inspected the herbs on the ground. He had returned to the place where he had previously discovered the purple rhododendron, and continued walking deeper into the woods. Yalun was fully armed this time and followed behind him. This calm middle-aged man had a trace of confusion and doubt on his face, but his good qualities prevented him from asking and just followed silently. Gradually, After leaving the last picnic spot, Wu Lun took the initiative to walk in front of Garen, pulling out his dagger to be alert at all times. During the last picnic, we basically cleared away the dangerous creatures around us. Normally we wouldn't recover so quickly, but we can't go too far wrong. Don't be so nervous, haven't we just left here a few days ago, Garen said with a smile. It's better to be careful. Wu Lun was unmoved. Garen shrugged and let it be. While looking down at the grass and plants on the ground, he took out a woven bag that he had prepared long ago and unfolded it, ready to contain things at any time. Without any detours, the two of them walked directly towards the deepest part of the forest. In front of them, they could vaguely see the towering mountains, and the tops of the blue peaks were covered with white ice and snow. The plants on the ground seemed to be getting older and older, but from time to time some more ferocious poisonous snakes and spiders appeared. They were all solved one by Wu Lun. Garen didn't recognize most of the plants, and only a few were similar to the plants in his previous life. He only looked for purple rhododendrons, thorn grasses, and the like that he knew. Gradually, he found two plants intermittently in the dense grass, but they were both less than a century old. It seemed that the previous 1,000-year-old purple rhododendrons were just a matter of luck. Garen continued to search unwillingly. He knew that as long as an old herb like purple rhododendron appears in one place, there will definitely be similar ones nearby. So after collecting several purple rhododendrons, he continued to search around the environment. Found it, suddenly his eyes lit up. A few steps ahead, a slender purple grass suddenly grew behind a piece of bluestone. The branches and leaves were covered with tiny white spots, which looked very unclean. It's 1,000 years old. Sure enough, it's even older than the ones I picked before, Garen was delighted. He searched all the purple rhododendrons around here, and finally found such a 1,000-year-old plant. The herbs he found were barely enough to prepare 2 doses of herbal medicine. It is estimated that he can improve his physical fitness and return to more than half of his peak level. At this point, it is estimated that there will be no purple grass around anymore. This herb has very high environmental requirements. If you want to encounter it again, you can only rely on luck. The soil quality in the past was no longer suitable for the growth of purple rhododendron. Garen walked straight towards the herb, preparing to dig it up first. Snapped. Suddenly a crisp sound came from behind him. Then there was a sound of clothes flying, and a green figure climbed over his head, landing in front of Garen as light as a bird. Who? Wu Lun suddenly drew his sword and stood in front of Garen, holding a dagger and sword in one hand. Who are you? Wu Lun stared closely at the woman in the green dress in front of him. She had short dark green hair and was holding a long bow in her hand. There seemed to be something wrong with the way she looked at the two of them. Jungle Ranger? No, there can't be a ranger here. Who are you? A solemn look appeared on Wu Lun's face. The opponent's light climb just now was not something he could do at his level. The woman sneered and did not answer the question, but just looked at Garen in front of her. A playboy, instead of having fun and enjoying himself, he goes to dig weeds in such a wilderness. Ahashia, what are your plans? Who are you? Garen took 2 steps back and hid behind Wu Lun. Why do you know my name? He tried to look scared. But his spirit is always locked on the woman in front of him. The surging energy surging in the other party made him feel slightly frightened. This is a much stronger level than he is now. My name is Tias. You are unlucky when you meet me. I am in a bad mood right now. Tia sneered again and raised her right hand. Suddenly a small sound broke through the air. Laugh. Wu Lun pushed Garen away suddenly and stood in front of him. He grunted, and slashed at the woman with the long and short swords in his hands, but she was easily avoided by the other side. Run, Wu Lun shouted loudly, and his sword suddenly started slashing wildly. Regardless of his own injuries, he attacked Tias with all his strength. Garen stumbled and ran back quickly. After just running a few steps, he saw a blue shadow flashing in the corner out of the corner of his eye. It's a blue-scaled snake. Sure enough, he felt cold in his heart. The other party is indeed related to Guy Li. Soon, a scream from Wu Lun came from behind, and then there was no sound again. "Can you run?" a female voice came from behind Garen, and suddenly a subtle sound broke through the air again. Garen pretended that his feet were tilted, and he rolled and fell to the ground. He avoided the black needle, but he rolled down a slope and lay on the grass. Amidst the sound of footsteps, Tiaz appeared not far in front of Garen like a ghost. With a swish sound, she pointed her sword at Garen. "It's really vulnerable." There was a look of contempt on her face. Looking at the herbal bag held in Galen's hand, a playful look flashed across her eyes. Snapped. She stamped hard on the herb basket at her feet, trampling all the herbs inside to pieces, so that no intact parts could be seen anymore. "Is this the weed you are looking for everywhere? It's such a pity that everything has turned into waste." Garen's heart suddenly became angry. After all, he had worked hard to collect these herbs for so long, and they were completely destroyed by her kick. He glanced out of the corner of his eye and saw that the blue-scaled snake was still there. Now he was sure that there must be a Silver Lantern master behind this person controlling the situation. "You dare to kill me? I am the sole heir of the Terry Jones family. If you kill me, you must consider the consequences. My entire family will fight you to death." Galen pretended to be stern. But in the eyes of Tiaz and Blue Scale Snake, they are simply strong on the outside but weak on the inside. "Until death? Haha, I'm so scared." Tiaz laughed sweetly, even tears came out. "I didn't expect an idiot like you to use this trick to scare people. Hooray." At this moment, Garen showed some fighting skills, turned over and ran away. Before Tiaz could react, he jumped down from another large slope. Seeking death, Tiaz strode after him, catching up with Garen's speed extremely quickly. Then jumped down from the big slope. There was a hint of disappointment in the blue-scaled snake's human eyes. "Is that all there is to it? Are you hiding just a little bit of fighting skills?" It hesitated for a moment, but finally turned around and swam away quickly. "It was in vain that I arranged for a general to come over. What a waste of effort." Plop! From below the large slope in the distance, there was the sound of heavy objects falling into the water. Below the slope is a deep green water pool. Tiaz flew down, following the traces of Galen's roll, to the edge of the cliff of the pool, and looked down. No one. Where did he go? Did he fall? She looked gloomily, looking at the rolling waves below. "If I die, someone will avenge me, but what about you?" Suddenly a gentle male voice came from behind her. Tiaz trembled all over, and struck a sword with her backhand. Black light flashed, and 3 black needles shot out at the same time. Tisk tisk tisk. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 247. With a snap, 3 black needles were caught with bare hands. Boom. She saw a faint hint of red in Ahashia's pale golden eyes, and a pair of big hands silently pressed on her chest. There was no sound of impact, only a roar in his mind, and his body seemed to be completely shaken by a huge vibration, with most of the power being offset and losing balance. Tiaz watched helplessly as she fell to the sky and into the deep pool. Plop! Garen stood on the cliff, raised his left hand, and 3 black needles shot down at once. At the same time, the whole person jumped up and rushed straight towards Tiaz in the pool. "You guy!" Tiaz wanted to shout in the water pool, but was interrupted by 3 black needles that followed. Immediately afterwards, a black shadow fell from the sky and rushed straight towards him. She looked up and saw Garen rushing towards her with a cruel and cold look in his eyes. He no longer looked embarrassed and weak and could be bullied. Suddenly I felt a chill in my heart. This guy was hiding too deeply. No. You must report back as soon as possible. 3 leaps, she stepped hard, and a semi-arc wave of water rushed towards Garen. But he shot up from the pool like an arrow, stepped on the water 3 times in a row, his speed became faster each time, and jumped directly to the shore. Water is not an environment she is good at, and close combat is not what she is best at. Moreover, she was hit hard again just now, and her whole body is still numb and she can't use her strength. The 3 leaps that he was usually proud of were only half as powerful and fast at this time. This made her feel both scared and aggrieved. Wait until I recover and catch my breath. She was furious and was about to say something harsh. Suddenly, a huge force came silently from behind. 10,000 waters and blue king kung fu. Garen's hands turned blue, and his palms were pressed straight against Tia's vest, and a harsh sound of sea water boomed out. All the strength in his body was instantly integrated, vibrating at high speed, making a sound like a tsunami. The terrifying power condensed into countless small whirlpools, and suddenly hit Tia's together. Bang! Tia spat out a mouthful of blood, her whole body was like a punctured water bag, with red blood splattering everywhere. He staggered a few steps and turned around. You! Garen took a step forward and whipped him with a simple kick, sending him flying across the ground and hitting a large bluestone and rolling down. There was a cracking sound of bones in the body, and he didn't know how many bones were broken. Walking up to Tia's, Garen calmly lowered his head and looked down at her. Looking at her eyes full of unwillingness and resentment. Do you have anything else to say? Tia's tried her best to open her mouth, but the blood in her mouth completely blocked her mouth, and she could only make an indistinct sound. Garen knelt down, picked up a scattered black needle, and gently pointed it at her forehead. By now. Laugh. The black needle pierced half of Tia's eyebrows. Tia's trembled all over, with a look of despair in her eyes, and her body began to tremble violently. Soon, her tremors became less and less, became weaker and weaker, and finally stopped completely after more than a minute. Garen stood up and dusted off the grass clippings on his body, but his originally white casual clothes had been completely dyed green by the grass juice. It's really embarrassing, he sighed and began to carefully examine the various traces left behind. The footprints on the ground, the special effects caused by boxing techniques, and all traces of his possible exposure were all cleaned up. This time Guy Lassie sent someone to test Tia's. I seem to have seen this person in the picture. He looked at Tia's body and vaguely found this person in the memory picture. During this time, he sorted out all the things about Vindman and the key events. I can barely figure out the specific process of the past 2 years. This person should have come here to test it out 2 months later. How could he come here now? He frowned slightly. If it weren't for my sneak attack, she would have an archer attack her with long-range arrows, constantly increasing the distance. In a head-on confrontation, I would really be in danger now. After all, he has not yet reached the general level. After confirming that there were no unusual noises around him, he squatted down, took off all the longbows and arrows from the body, then touched Tia's body and found a small brown bag and some scattered coins. The contents of the bag were quickly poured out on the ground. Inside were some pink pills and a stack of white long strips of cotton. What is this? Garen pulled a piece of cotton and examined it carefully. There is a row of words vaguely on the side, with Messina. I feel really relieved. There is also a phrase below, Messina tampons allow you to stretch and move freely. Garen immediately knew what it was and threw away the tampon with a dark face. The pills are very small, with letters like AD marked on them, and are round and pink in color. This is. Garen seemed to have thought of something. This is of some use. Collecting the pills and putting them away, he stood up and held a thick branch, walking backwards while sweeping away his own footprints. Quickly leave the edge of the pool. Returning to Wu Lun's location, Garen carefully hid himself first. After discovering that there was no blue-scaled snake, he walked out and rushed to Wu Lun's side. This sincere man was not dead, but had a hole in his head and was bleeding. Garen chewed the pink pill directly, applied it on the wound on his forehead, and then pressed it. After a while the wound stopped bleeding. Wu Lun also woke up in a daze. "Master, are you still alive? Someone saved me, don't talk about this, let's get out of here first." Garen pretended to be in shock. "Okay." Wu Lun's injury was not serious, he just lost a little excessive blood. The blood all over his body looked scary. He was shaky when he walked, but it didn't affect his movement after all. The two returned to the carriage and saw the coachman lying in a pool of blood. An arrow had been inserted into his neck, and the blood was almost drained. The two black horses dragged the carriage more than 10 meters and did not stop until they got stuck in 2 trees. Garen and Yulin got on the carriage and turned around. He drove his horse back quickly. Ahashia's return from the attack caused a sensation in the entire manor. Furious, Vindman sent out all his forces and searched around Black Flower Mountain for 2 days, but could not find any trace. The body of the female assassin was also dragged by the wild wolf to an unknown location. Only the faint traces of the struggle can be seen beside the pool. Ahashia was therefore grounded and was not allowed to go anywhere in the manor. Vindman went out in person, and it was unknown what he was going for, but judging from his stern expression when he left, it was obvious that he was not going on vacation. Garen also took the opportunity to stay in the manor, studying the codex honestly every day, and exercising at the same time, striving to regain his full strength as soon as possible. Take precision drafting to a mastery level. As his physical fitness continues to recover, he learns faster and faster, and it is only a matter of time before he reaches the stable and demanding master level. This time, it would be better to shock the opponent with a sneak attack in advance, and then use the 10,000 waters and Blue King technique to hit the vital vest. All attacks were carried out in one go, without any pause. The 10,000 waters and Blue King Kung Fu was obtained through exchanges with Celine, and is particularly suitable for sneak attacks in concealment. And it's very light on the body. The only weakness is that its power is a bit weak, so it is not very good against real masters. But it seems to be very powerful against the general level masters in this world who are obviously physically weaker. In a strange manner somewhere, in a bright red rose garden, a woman wearing a green veil and a green tight skirt stood among a large number of red roses and was carefully pruning the branches and leaves of the red roses with scissors. Next to her, another woman in green was lowering her head and reporting the news in a low voice. Several captains of the remnants of the bandits have gone out to hunt down the bandits. This is the actual situation of encircling and suppressing bandits these days. In addition, the reporter carefully looked at the veiled woman in front of him. In addition, TIAs who went to Vindman Manor disappeared and has not returned yet. Oh. The veiled woman stopped holding the scissors in her hands and pondered slightly. Did you get the code? No. No news from the rest. Nothing. The veiled woman put down the scissors and frowned slightly. TIAs is a child who knows the importance of things. She will not disappear for no reason. It seems that there was an accident. I'm afraid so. The reporter lowered his head. Isn't it possible for even a general in Vindman to escape? He's hidden deep enough. A hint of murderous intent flashed through the veiled woman's green eyes. Where's Tracy? Isn't she on vacation? The reporter was a little stunned. Tell her to come back immediately. I can't get away from this matter, so I have to leave it to him. Our green shadow cannot be lowered because of this incident. Yes. A few days later. Call. In the bedroom, Garen punched out, and a faint whirlwind rolled up in the air, rapid and short. Garen moved his arms to the left and right, and made a tearing sound, like a tiny sound of cloth being torn. Only then did he show a satisfied look on his face and retract his arms. Strength and physique have exceeded 1.5, and I can finally use secret martial arts to promote fighting skills. The next step is to completely restore full strength and use the 4 secret skills at will. Garen picked up a towel on one side to wipe the sweat on his body. Walk to the round table in the middle of the room and sit down. This is a table he specially placed here to place some things that are convenient to use. While pouring water for himself, he glanced at the current attribute bar. Although the medicinal liquid was stopped, the subsequent medicinal effects had not been completely absorbed by the body, and the physical fitness continued to recover and accelerated for a while before stopping. Now it has changed a lot from the beginning. Strength 1.6, Agility 1.5, Constitution 1.9, Intelligence 1.1, Potential 1772%. Possess the qualification of Silver Lantern Technician. Secret Martial Arts, God Statue Skill, Vientiane Fighting Skills. Full recovery time is 287 days, 1 year. Precision Cartography, Mastery Level. 3 levels in total: Beginner, Master, Master. Precision mapping breaks through to the Master level, and the recovery time is automatically shortened. Intelligence finally broke through 1 and reached the per capita level. This is what Galen is most pleased about. Now, when he thinks about problems, he no longer has to be the same as before, slow to react, and he can't think of the key points for a long time. Memorizing the essentials of precise drawing is also easy and feels much smoother. Sure enough, this is the advantage of high IQ. He took another sip of hot water with satisfaction. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 248. Intelligence represents memory, imagination, logical thinking, etc. If it is too low, it will lead to a significant decline in learning and comprehension. While Garen was sitting on the chair to rest, he also began to think about the next situation again. Things have changed. That TIAs shouldn't have appeared at this time. How could it be earlier? He put down the cup and tapped the table with his fingers, showing a thoughtful look. I remember that before Baker Stone I came, several major events happened. The Royal Alliance's Silver Lantern Master and the Black Sky Society had a falling out, causing turmoil and conflict. Over the course of this year, the Royal Alliance's influence became more and more weak, until finally it was completely occupied by the Black Sky Society. The key turning point was the Silver Lantern Division war with the Roseway War flag. Garen recalled the information contained in the picture and felt vaguely confident. From this point of view, the game in the world of Silver Lantern Masters is mainly between 3 parties: the Royal Alliance, Black Sky Society, and Earth Flower Society. Each of the 3 parties has strong top Silver Lantern Masters. In the early stage, there was a conflict between the Royal Alliance and Black Sky Society. The conflict caused the strength of both sides to decline, and Baker Stone I of the Earth Flower Society took the opportunity to rise. He carefully sifted out some details in the picture. Soon they found the strongest Silver Lantern Master standing under the respective banners of the 3 parties. There are 3 people in the Royal Alliance, who are the leaders of the 3 major organizations and the representatives of the interests of the royal family and the great nobles. Black Sky Society is the Ghost Gate and his 2 disciples. The Earth Flower Club is composed of Baker Stone Eyes and his partners, plus the leader of the Silver Knights. Although they have the largest number of people, they are the weakest in strength. This is the Silver Lantern Master who is the strongest in the 3 aspects of Silver Lantern Master. Vined Man is only a scattered supporter outside the 3 major organizations, and is also a peripheral member of the Black Sky Society. He can be regarded as one of the opponents that Baker Stone Eyes and his team encountered in the early stages. The leaders of the 3 major organizations of the Royal Alliance, that's too far away. Any one of them is a more powerful Silver Lantern Master than Baker Stone Eyes in his last period. It is estimated that my father Vined Man cannot come into contact with that level. Garen analyzing, as long as these 3 people are here, Black Sky Society will not make any blatant attack on the manor. So my attack should be used to warn Father Vindman. He frowned slightly and immediately analyzed the general situation. Next, what is about to happen should be a small-scale conflict between the Black Sky Society and the Royal Alliance, and then gradually evolve into a large-scale conflict. The current Daiwa Society is just a small player, not worth mentioning. The war is coming, and the Black Sky Society we don't have time to pay attention to small characters like us for the time being. That's why we waited until Baker Stone Eyes arrived before destroying the manor. Garen frowned and stood up. But now that I'm being attacked, it's obvious that both parties are no longer prepared to hide their secrets. It feels like they are at odds with each other. Then there's not much time left. Maybe it could be earlier than what's shown in the picture. He walked around the room several times. It seems we have to advance the schedule. He finally made up his mind. His eyes immediately fell on the skill bar. The precision drawing column above clearly shows the words Master Level. First upgrade this to the Master Level, and then go to Teacher, aiming to learn the technique in advance, and strive to make my silver totem as soon as possible. But before that, I need to completely restore my strength. There was determination on his face. At this time, we can't worry about the possibility of leaking so many secrets. After Garen made up his mind, he began to spend money to hire mountain people in the town below to go to the mountain forest to collect 3 kinds of herbs such as purple rhododendron and albino grass. Purchased at the price of 10 rounds of cloth per plant. The will cloth is the official currency issued by the Kuwaitan Empire, with a purchasing power slightly greater than the US dollar on Earth. It's a pretty good price. Soon after the servant set up the acquisition point, the news spread, and a large number of mountain people began to collect the herbs needed for Galen in the mountain forest. After his father Vindman learned the news, he had no intention of asking. Regarding his behavior, he probably thought that he wanted to plant some flowers and plants. Ahashia has always liked growing roses. It's not surprising to suddenly switch to another type of flower planting. After being confused, Vindman learned that his son had replaced all the roses in the rose garden and turned it into a weed garden, so he said no more. I guess this is another whim of my son. I guess I learned some alchemist knowledge from somewhere, and I was trying to make some kind of potion mysteriously all day long. He sneered at this. The alchemist's potion had been exposed hundreds of years ago and proved to be the biggest scam at the end of the century. It didn't cost much anyway, and he didn't bother to pay attention to his son's strange behavior. Vindman is no ordinary busy now. He first went to the capital of the empire and visited dozens of famous silver lantern masters and nobles. Got a lot of information about Black Sky Society. As a scholar-type silver lantern maker, he has a very wide network of contacts in this area. Finally, he invited 2 old friends who were both silver lantern masters to come to his manor and stay for a few days as a sign of the royal family's attitude. Hello, teachers. Garen stood respectfully in front of the 2 old men with white beards, not daring to be disrespectful at all. Behaving extremely cautiously. These 2 people were the 2 royal silver lantern masters invited by their father Vindman from the imperial capital. One is named Rob and the other is named Eric. They were all dressed in white robes with silver trim, and they looked like knowledgeable scholars. Both nodded. A good kid. Although his intelligence is indeed not very good, he is still very polite. I saw the respect for knowledge in his eyes, Eric said loudly. His voice was so loud that it made the whole study tremble. Vindman was sitting on the side with a gloomy expression. This time Shia was attacked. I suspect it was the warning from the people over there. The strength of me and several big lords were also attacked by surprise, which severely reduced it. It was obviously a premeditated action. He glanced at Garen. Xia, you can go down now. Don't go out if you have nothing to do. The situation has been a bit unstable recently. I know, father. Although Garen also wanted to listen to the conversation between the 3 of them, The 3 Silver Lantern Masters were all much stronger masters than he was now. Even if he recovered all his strength, he would not be able to match them. So eavesdropping is also impossible. He maintained the turtle breathing technique to restrain his energy and spirit, and slowly exited the room. The faint sound of 3 people talking could be heard behind him. Without stopping, he strode out of the small building where his father Vindman was. When he reached the lawn below the small building, he raised his head and looked at the lighted study on the 2nd floor. It seems that the Royal Alliance is about to start a counterattack. 2 Silver Lantern Masters actually came to support. He quickly walked back to his small building along the empty lawn. After closing the door, he quickly went to his study room on the 2nd floor. Lock the doors and windows and draw the curtains. He pulled a red leather wooden box from under the bed, unlocked it, and opened the box. Inside were jars of light blue medicinal liquid. I have actually brewed and accumulated so much recently. Although it is not 1,000-year-old medicine, it has restored its effect on the body. He took out a bottle, opened it and drank it like a drink. If it was the 1,000-year-old Zilu herbal liquid with strong medicinal properties, he would never dare to drink it like this. However, these are all components of purple rhododendron that are less than 100 years old, and their medicinal properties are too weak. If you don't drink it directly, the medicinal properties will be worse. However, this kind of medicine has just enough properties that the body can barely tolerate it. After a bottle of medicinal solution went down, Garin put the bottle away, closed the box, and put it back in its place. The body suddenly felt faintly warm. During this period, he used his servants to collect medicinal herbs and brewed them himself. He didn't know how many bottles of medicinal liquid he drank. The body has gradually recovered to a level close to its peak. He glanced at the attribute bar below his field of vision. Garin had a hint of expectation in his heart. It's still a little bit closer to completely returning to its peak. Strength 2.0, Agility 1.9, Constitution 2.2, Intelligence 1.7, Potential 1772%. Possess the qualification of Silver Lantern Technician. This is a body made purely from medicinal liquid. Now the medicinal liquid has become resistant to my body, but I have recovered almost as well. Garin was pleased to feel the strong energy and blood in his body. During his strongest period, the average of all quality attributes was around 2.6. Now it has returned to 2.0, which is equivalent to more than twice that of an ordinary person. When combined, the explosive power of the whole body will increase exponentially. Already able to use the 4 most powerful secret skills. So in total, his strength in his previous life has been restored to more than 90%. But it's no longer the original world. Such strength is still not enough here. Garin sighed slightly. After resting for a while and waiting for the effects of the medicine to wear off, his eyes fell on the skill bar again. Now that my body has almost fully recovered, it depends on my skills in precision mapping. It's time to improve. Garin began to stare at the skill of precision cartography, and his gaze stayed for 3 seconds. Soon, the skill words flickered and blurred, from master level to master level. As for the potential points column, suddenly, it was reduced by 500%. The skill bar suddenly changed. Precision Cartography, Master Class. 3 levels in total, Beginner, Master, Master. As expected, it is an advanced skill. Previously, I broke through to the Master level by myself, so I did not consume potential points. Now that I have broken through to the advanced skill, it is indeed 5 points of potential. Garin felt a pain in his body. The 18 points that originally seemed like a lot were reduced to only 12 points due to the skill of precision cartography. I just don't know if there are any bad luck antiques in this world, he thought helplessly. In this manner, he had touched every antique collected by his father Vindman, but none of them were bad luck antiques. The potential point remains unchanged. This made him wonder whether there was such a thing as an antique of bad luck in this world. As the precise drawing reached the master level, Garin once again felt a cool air as thick as a pen, instantly flowing out of his brain and spreading into his arms and hands. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 249. Instead, his hands felt as if they were soaked in warm water, feeling warm and comfortable. An unprecedented sense of dexterity and agility came to Garin's mind. He raised his hands and suddenly twirled his fingers. With a snap, a finger of welcome flashed in the air. Garin narrowed his eyes. So fast. Such a fast speed is actually just the basis for becoming a Silver Lantern Master. He felt it carefully and found that the flexible speed of his 10 fingers could be used to make at least 3 complex gestures in 1 second. Basically, in the blink of an eye, the gesture is complete. Next, it's the turn of the technique. Garin took out the notebook and smoothed out the fine wrinkles on the surface. Teacher Aining said that if you want to continue studying, you have to go to him for further study. But now I can't leave the manor. I have to find a way. His intelligence has now completely returned to its original level. As soon as he starts thinking, he immediately thinks and associates very quickly. There are now 3 Silver Lantern Masters in the manor, and the Black Sky Society will not come to provoke for the time being. But my father should have thought that the situation is tense now, and the Royal Alliance can reinforce it, and the Black Sky Society will not be idle. It is estimated that reinforcements will also be sent. When the time comes, when the 2 sides conflict, I feel even more unsafe. He guessed that if he directly proposed to go out, Vindman would not object after thinking about it. After all, the Silver Lantern Masters would never pay attention to an ordinary little character. As long as it's well concealed, there should be no problem. In a small town thousands of kilometers away from Green Forest Province. The dim sunlight in the afternoon falls on the grid streets, creating a warm and cozy atmosphere. Several children were chasing and fighting in front of the fruit stall. Among the passing farmers and mountain people were some mercenaries carrying weapons. Occasionally, you can see a few neat and elegant people. In a light yellow wooden private building on the street. The small door in front of the building opened with a creak, and a pale-faced young man walked in. He had a pale face and a calm look in his eyes. He was dressed in black clothes, wearing a black bowler hat, and a black quill on his chest. Holding a black stick in his hand. He entered the door and looked at a young and enchanting woman sitting at the bar in the lobby of the small building. "Belina, the teacher is back," he said while looking up to the stairs on the 2nd floor. "It's right up there, waiting for you. Come up quickly." The enchanting woman combed her long red hair with a small comb and answered casually. "New." The man took off his hat, hung it on the shelf by the door, and went up the stairs to the 2nd floor. Passing through the wooden corridor, he came to a small room, reached out and knocked on the door. Boom boom. "Is it Stone Eye? Come in." An old man's voice came from the room. The door opened automatically, leaving a gap for only one person to enter or exit. The man in black walked in. Inside is a medium-sized study room, with rows of bookshelves hiding the walls from view. There are books and open notes everywhere on the floor, tables, and chairs. The white paper draft was painted in a mess, and it was filled with various complex formulas and symbols. There was a strange old man sitting in front of the desk by the window. His beard was silver and very long, so long that it had to wrap around several times when it was dragged from the desk to the door. More than 20 meters long. "Your beard has grown again." After closing the door, the young man helplessly raised his feet to avoid the silver beard on the ground, and walked to the old man. "This is a curse that will last a lifetime." The old man put down the notebook in his hand, leaned back on the chair and let out a long breath. "Compared to killing that man, I can still afford this price. What's the matter with you calling me here?" the young man lowered his head and asked respectfully. Baker Stone Eyes, when you were a baby, I rescued you from the drifting river. At that time, you were able to understand what I meant. You promised me that you would no longer have resentment towards the world. For those who abandoned you, have your parents stopped being hostile? The old man looked into the young man's eyes with a hint of scrutiny. Baker Stone Eyes was silent for a while, and then he answered with difficulty. I am willing to work hard for this. That means you still didn't do it after all. I knew it. The old man sighed again. Life is unpredictable, and you have stayed in this town for 19 years. Hatred only brings hatred. Until now, there is no way to discipline you anymore. Your talent scares me too, and I am afraid that once you go astray, you will cause too much trauma to the world. Unfortunately, these are beyond your control. Teacher. Needless to say, maybe you will become the most powerful Silver Lantern Master in the world, but you will never forget that your hatred, your desire, your life, every move will bring huge consequences to mortals. Influence. What you bring to the world may be light or shadow. The old man looked at the child in front of him who had taught him for nearly 20 years, with a hint of kindness in his eyes. Go on, it's time for you to leave. Leave? Baker's stone eyes were a little confused. Where should I go? Go where you want to go. Baker Sheehan opened his mouth and wanted to speak, but all he felt was that his eyes were blurred. He was standing on the street outside the small building, reaching out and preparing to push the door in. Teacher, is this what you want to say to me? He murmured, put down his hand, and turned to leave. With a creak, the door of the small building was opened from the inside, and a voluptuous red-haired woman looked at him leaving strangely. Hey! Why don't you stay with the teacher for a little longer? She shouted. Baker Stone Eyes just waved with his backhand, and soon disappeared into the crowd. The beautiful face that he would never forget when he was a boy suddenly appeared in his mind. I will find the person who took you away. Baker Stone Eyes secretly clenched his fists. Green Forest Province. Rosewood Manor. Bang. Wow. With an angry look on her face, Gila C swept away all the sculptures and vases on the table, smashed them on the wall and on the ground, and immediately broke into pieces and miscellaneous pieces. The whole room was littered with bits of trash she had vented about. There are crystal sculptures, life-size models, furniture, and flower baskets. Everything in the entire room was completely smashed. Damn 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 damn. Gila C's face was distorted, and her anger made her completely lose her usual elegant and moving pure beauty. Bail. Baphia, she gritted her teeth, pulled the tablecloth next to her fiercely, threw it to the ground with a crash, and stepped on it hard. Royal Alliance, you are going too far. This is Green Forest Province. This is my Black Sky territory. She was so angry that her whole body was shaking, and her eyes were full of murderous intent. But getting angry is getting angry, and Gila C also knows a little bit about the upper-level strategies. Now the layout of various countries is not complete, and she is just a very small link in it. Even the provincial leaders of the Royal Alliance, Barbafia, are still a very small part of the huge Royal Alliance. You must not undermine the overall situation at this time. Otherwise, not only will this revenge not be avenged, but the superiors will also. You can't be proud for much longer, just wait. Gila C felt that the pent-up energy in her chest could not be vented, and she was extremely unhappy. I will remember this humiliation for next time. Next time I will definitely strip you all naked. Throw you into the sow pen. In front of the open door, a female subordinate who heard the words immediately shuddered. Report. What's going on? Gila C turned around and shouted loudly while she was furious. I have 2 pieces of news, the female subordinate replied with some trepidation. A missing general in Luyan has been found. He was eaten by wild wolves until only his bones were left. Oh? These incompetent guys. Vine man, "You are very good." Gylacie's eyes were fierce, and she was about to have an attack. "Is there any news?" "Master Ronaway is here." Lonavi Gyli was about to speak, when suddenly the scene seen from the perspective of the blue-scaled snake flashed in front of her eyes. Tias, the killer of Green Shade, was chasing that idiot young Master Ahashia in the dense forest. "Interesting Vine Man, I want to see what kind of master you arrange for your son." She licked her lips. Giving orders to female subordinates. "Go and tell Ronavi that I prefer a handsome little boy like Vindman's son Ahashia to this reckless man. Let him stop bothering me again." "Yes, yes." The female subordinate quickly agreed, turned around and left in a hurry. 3 days later. Every once in a while, a convoy carrying exchange supplies would slowly drive out of Terry Jones territory and head towards Hana province on the edge of the Red River. In the afternoon sunset, the motorcade drove across the small bridge over the Red River at the provincial border. The shadows of carriages and trucks were reflected in the river, making it look peaceful and peaceful. In a white truck, Garin wore a white cloth hood and covered his face, sitting alone among the many goods. The leader of this convoy is Bank, a Philistine and shrewd small businessman. His identity is a caravan leader walking between the borders of the province, but no one knows that he is actually a secret agent of the Terry Jones family. This convoy ostensibly went out to exchange goods, but was actually escorting Garin out of the manor. "It's getting more and more dangerous there, which is why Vindman agreed to let Galen leave." His destination was his aunt's home in Hana province, far away at the end of the Red River. "Looking at my reflection under the bridge, it is as clear as a mirror." A red maple leaf slowly fell on the water, making fine lines. Garin rubbed his hands together gently, the weather gradually getting colder. Whenever he was in such peaceful moments, he would always think of his peaceful life on Earth. He kept moving forward, relying on his superpowers, without any stagnation, until he reached the end that he could see. For what purpose, Garin himself didn't know. "Perhaps if I keep walking like this, I will one day return to Earth," Garin thought in his heart, and he breathed out gently, turning into white mist. Only strength can give him a sense of security and enough strength. Garin sometimes also wonders, is he practicing martial arts for the illusory dreams in his heart, or is it to make himself no longer afraid? Fear of dying. There are countless planets and civilizations in the universe, and there are countless existences more powerful than the Silver Lantern Master. Even the once powerful and prominent warlocks were completely wiped out. What on earth is eternal? Garin raised his head and looked at the dusk sky. A group of wild geese flew by slowly, forming a herringbone line. A white gold figure slowly appeared next to Garin, looking up at the sky like him. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 250. A kind of doubt that he had never felt before arose in his heart. It was as if he had lived in chaos for decades, and suddenly woke up and questioned why he was living like this. This was the first time Garin had such a feeling. In the past, he had always been passive on the road, constantly knocking down the enemies in front of him, until he climbed to the top of the strongest. But now, he suddenly changed to a different world, surrounded by beings much more powerful than himself. There was no way to catch up for a while, and there was no strength or way to move forward. Just during this trip, during this gap, Garin suddenly felt like this for the first time. But this feeling only existed for a while and then disappeared. Garin shook his head, a little amused by his sudden emotion. If I haven't even solved my own danger, who am I qualified to think about this problem now? Smiling, he returned to thinking about the details of the letter. Combining the scenes he had seen before, he began to gradually become familiar with some details and information about the Silver Lantern Masters. The two parts of the entire planet, the east and west continents, are the mainstream, and the rest is surrounded by large oceans and glaciers. All countries on the two continents are under the control of the Silver Lantern Master, and the contradiction between the Black Sky Society and the Royal Alliance is becoming more and more acute. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Daiwa Society, which lacked broad power, took the opportunity to rise. It has transformed from a simple organization of Silver Lantern Masters into a huge power group comparable to the Black Sky Society. This is the big picture. Apart from the three-party battle, the largest number was actually the ordinary Silver Lantern Masters. These large numbers of Silver Lantern Masters are the backbone of the entire Silver Lantern Master world. It's just two different concepts that divide them into two sides. This is a struggle of ideas, not a simple battle. Garen thoroughly sorted out all the scenes he saw. Start carefully collecting all the pictures that may happen to you. Form a time chain arrangement, which is useful when you need to refer to it at any time. The convoy stopped every once in a while to unload the supplies and replace them with new ones. Then continue on your way. We walked upstream along the Red River and passed several small towns one after another. Galen was always looking for an opportunity to go off alone. Teacher Aining's address is in the Red River Basin, but it is not consistent with the direction of the motorcade. But the team master who protected him, Yulin and the other two taciturn knights, would never let him leave alone. This requires finding the opportunity. More than 10 days later, when horse thieves attacked the convoy, several experts had no choice but to take action. Garen took advantage of the chaos and left the convoy. Leave a message and go along the Red River alone, following the map left by the teacher. At the end of the Red River, the small town of Wink. The town is located on the edge of a rolling hillside, surrounded by small red flowers all over the mountains and plains like a sea of flowers. Gorgeous and naturally fragrant. In the afternoon, Garen stood on the slope with a somewhat dirty look, looking at the town in the distance. The shape of the entire town was similar to two crosses side by side. The number of people was very small, maybe a few hundred at most. It is much smaller than other towns along the coast. The houses are all dilapidated brown wooden houses, mixed with a lot of yellow-brown mud bricks. There is a stone wall surrounding the town, and there are even many gaps in some places, as if they were knocked out by something. Garen looked at the town quietly and jerked his right foot. Puff! A large bright red centipede suddenly emerged from the soil under his feet. It rolled a few times in the grass, then curled up into a ball and became completely motionless. It's really dangerous, Garen murmured. Along the way, he often walked along the driveway beside the Red River. And I was very lucky not to encounter any thieves or bandits. But these poisonous insects alone were encountered no less than dozens of times. Not counting some wandering wild wolves and wild dogs. These beasts form a large herd upon arrival. Especially wild dogs, there are hundreds of them each time, which is galleons. Using the power to intimidate, the wild dogs can be completely frightened and dare not come forward. If it were anyone else, he would still be entangled even if he wasn't afraid. In such a harsh environment, most people would never be able to travel far without special training. After a short walk, you will be injured or poisoned by various bugs or animals, or be delayed, and you will have no choice but to find a human settlement. Otherwise, once the rations are exhausted, there will really be nothing you can do in the wilderness. After 2 days of walking, I finally found this damn place. Garen took out the map from his pocket and checked it. There was a determined expression on his face. Putting away the map, he took out a small whistle and was about to put it in his mouth and blow it. Suddenly, a strange throbbing came from the distance on the left side. Garen squatted down like a reflex, took a few steps back, and used the slope to hide himself. On the only trail in the town that is connected to the outside world, 2 black horses are galloping towards here from a distance. Immediately behind them are 2 men in black cloaks, gorgeously dressed and muscular, both carrying crossed silver battle axes on their backs. From a distance, Garen could feel the powerful aura hidden on Chi's body. In his sense of spirit, the spirits of the 2 people were like torches in the dark night, clear and dazzling. It's hard not to notice. Senior level Garen narrowed his eyes and noticed the logo on the cloaks of the two men. It was a red flying dragon with a long neck, which was the symbol of the Khautan royal family. It's them again. Garen frowned. These elite masters of the Royal Alliance cast their nets everywhere along the way, and every small place is taken care of by them. What do they want to do? This was not the first time he had seen such people along the way. He could occasionally see their shadows in several places, fortresses, small towns, and even villages he passed in succession. These people seemed to be searching and investigating something. Crouching behind the slope, the two of them left the town after a while, mounted their horses and quickly disappeared on the trail. One of them seemed to notice Garen from a distance, but he didn't take a second look. He just urged his companions to speed up. Garen stood up and watched as the two black horses disappeared completely. Then he picked up the silver whistle in his hand and blew it hard. There was no sound, just hissing air rushing out from the other side of the whistle. Like a broken whistle. But Garen didn't pause at all and continued to blow hard. Soon, a knight ran out of the town again. This is a beautiful girl in white clothes, riding a white goat without a beard. What? The white goat straightened up and ran towards Garen. The girl in white on the back also shouted excitedly. Drive! Drive! Garen put down his whistle and watched the girl run up to him and get off the goat. Is this your whistle? She asked aimlessly, pointing to the whistle in Garen's hand. Yes. Grandpa Aining asked me to take you there. Let's go, she said loudly while holding the goat. Good. Garen didn't hesitate at all. The little girl in front of him didn't look strange at all, and her physical fitness was only average. Garen glanced at her hands. The fingers were rough and covered with thick calluses. Not a Silver Lantern Master's apprentice either. Probably just an ordinary person. He followed the girl into the town, which was mostly filled with women and children. Occasionally, a few men appeared, stretching as if they had just gotten up. Smoke was billowing from some houses. You can still hear the barking of dogs and the crow of chickens in the distance. The little girl took Garen to a small wooden building at the end of the town. This is it? Are you Grandpa Aining's student? Are you so young? Yes, Garen smiled and nodded. My name is Garen, won't you introduce yourself? My name is Kenning, and I am a neighbor who lives next door. I usually come over occasionally to help Grandpa clean the house and learn Braille, the girl said generously. Hurry in, Grandpa Aining is waiting for you. Okay, Garen took out a small round cloth copper coin from his pocket. This is your reward for leading the way. He handed the small round cloth over and put it in the little girl's hand. You are so generous. Kenning's eyes shone, and he almost snatched the small round cloth copper coin from Galen's hand with one claw. He put it under his nose and sniffed it hard. Sure enough, it smells like money. Okay, I'll go in first. Garen smiled and ignored the little girl. He pushed open the fence in front of him and walked into the small wooden building. After walking a few steps, the door of the small building was slowly opened from the inside. An old man with white hair and beard was standing quietly at the door. He was wearing a white toga and his face was covered with criss-cross wrinkles. Only that familiar look, with a hint of scrutiny, is Garen's most familiar feature. Teacher Aining. Garen stopped hesitantly and looked at the white-haired old man at the door. How could you? He recognized from the other person's spirit that the other party was indeed Aining. Rather. He was once a Silver Lantern Master with a middle-aged appearance. Aining smiled peacefully. Come in first and speak slowly. He turned around and walked into the dark house. Garen strode into the house and closed the door behind his back. The house was dark and damp, with a faint smell of burnt leather. A beam of light slanted down from the skylight, becoming the only light in the room. Aining was sitting on the sofa next to the light, holding a glass of hot water in his hand and taking a sip from time to time. Seeing Garen entering the door, he pointed to the sofa in front of him. Garen walked over and sat down, his posture was very upright, and his eyes fell quietly on Aining's white hair and beard. "If you want to drink water, pour it yourself." Aining pointed to a dirty warm water bottle in the corner. "I know." Garen nodded. "Teacher, I will do it this time. If you have anything to say, just tell me. Is it about the blackguards? If this is still the case and you insist on me taking action, then we will have nothing to do with each other. You have to understand this," Aining said calmly. "Explain." "Blackguards." Garen was slightly stunned. "What blackguards?" "Huh." Aining was also stunned. "Aren't you here for the blackguards?" Of course Garen was a little confused, and suddenly he thought of the two black cloaks he saw just now. "You are not here for the blackguards, so what do you plan to do when you find me now?" Aining frowned slightly. "I'm here to learn the follow-up content from you," Garen said bluntly. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 251. Follow-up content. Aining put down the hot water cup and stared at Garen with piercing eyes. "Boy, how long has it been since you couldn't help but want to be academic? I'm not looking down on you. If the Silver Lantern Masters were so easy to do, the world would not know how many Silver Lantern Masters there are. Do you still need to go everywhere to select the inheritance disciples?" He stood up and clasped his hands behind his back. "Don't be too arrogant. Practicing the basic skills honestly is better than anything else. This is the most authentic advice from an old man to you." He sighed. "I think back then, I was the same way. I didn't have a solid foundation in basic skills, so I wanted to learn and research techniques and create my own totem. My teacher at that time gave me a hard blow. He could draw two symbols in 1 second. At that time, that just calmed me down." He looked up at the skylight, seeming to recall his past. The reason why he accepted Galen, who was always talking about running trains, was because he had a slight resemblance to himself when he was an apprentice before. Coupled with the grace of saving his life, everything fell into place. Garen looked at Aining, who was looking up to the sky and sighing, with a look of helplessness on his face. "Teacher, actually, you don't need to be too discouraged. Precision cartography itself does not require a master level. That is the high threshold I set for you deliberately. In fact, master level is enough." Aining interrupted him and said seriously, "Generally speaking, as long as you have good talent, it is not uncommon to reach the master level in half a year, as long as you work hard enough." He raised his head and entered the state of memory again. "I think back then, it took me half a year to reach the master level. At that time, my teacher praised me as a once-in-a-century genius." There was a trace of pride on his face. "So I ask you the same thing. After half a year, I will reach the master level. Within this year, you will enter the master level, and then I can directly teach you the basic techniques." "Teacher, actually," Garen opened his mouth helplessly. "No need to say more." Aining raised his hand and said seriously, "You just need to answer me, yes or no. I don't need any excuses. Any reasons. I only look at the results. Before long, you will know what a person I am." "Harsh man." Garen was really speechless. He looked at Aining innocently, not knowing what to say for a moment. Yes or not," Aining interrupted him again. Garen was completely speechless. From beginning to end, he never had a chance to say a complete sentence. "Yes," he replied helplessly. "Okay. This is my student." Aining patted Galen on the shoulder with satisfaction. "The master level is not that easy. What you need is a lot of perseverance, and persistence. Every year, hundreds of thousands of apprentices are dismissed from this level alone. With your talent, you should be able to reach it in about half a year. At this level, don't give up just because there is no progress." "Teacher, I have not made any progress." "Don't be proud. When you reach the final stage, you will encounter the biggest threshold to enter the master level. That is a big threshold that only talented people will encounter, which is how to break through the second speed. But I have also heard that talents are more for people with high level, there is no threshold for them to enter the master level, and even reaching the master level is only a matter of time. Such a genius is really enviable. Second speed is the biggest obstacle to entering the master level. I went through hardships, spent countless efforts, and received many exchanges with my fellow Silver Lantern masters before I entered the master level of precision drawing. The difficulties and obstacles involved, I can't imagine that even a genius like me needs to temper myself like that. He shook his head again, his eyes were filled with sadness, and he entered the state of memory. Garen felt that his balls were extremely painful. When this teacher was injured before, he recuperated every day, but he didn't notice it. Now that they meet again, his true colors are revealed. He looked at Enning, who had entered the memory mode, and whispered unbearably, "Teacher, actually, I am already a master." Enning came to his senses. "This is your shortcoming. You are full of lies and bragging. When will you learn to be honest? The respect of others is not gained by bragging, but by your true achievements and strength." Swish. Within 1 second, Garen made 3 different gestures with the 10 fingers of his hands instantly, with incomparable precision, without a trace of tremor or instability. Then there was complete silence. Completely out of sorts. The two looked at each other, neither of them knew what to say. Aining's raised hand hung in mid-air and could not be lowered. His mouth was half opened, but he had not yet finished speaking. Garen swallowed his saliva and looked at the teacher's dull eyes. The complex emotions contained therein were difficult to calculate even with the most precise mathematical formulas. Snapped. Enon slapped his hand on his forehead. No, I guess I slept too late last night and couldn't wake up from sleep. I have to go back and catch up on my sleep." Aining covered his head and turned around to leave. "Why are you hallucinating so early in the morning? It's really weird," he murmured and walked quickly up the stairs, paying no attention to Garen, who was standing there. Galen watched Enon speechlessly as he turned around and left. This guy thought he was just a hallucination in the morning. "Teacher!" he shouted. Aining's figure going upstairs suddenly froze. The atmosphere suddenly became infinitely awkward. After a while, Enning turned around stiffly. His face was as red as a monkey's butt. "Have you really reached the master level?" His voice was trembling, as if he couldn't believe this fact at all. Garen nodded slowly. Enning took a deep breath. This world is so unfair. He lowered his head, and when he thought of how many hardships he had gone through to reach the master level, his heart felt like thousands of grass and mud horses whizzing past. He raised his head and looked at this excessively young face. The last trace of illusion in his heart was broken by the cruel fact. "I'll go up and down in a while." He waved his hand, and for a moment, he seemed much older. Amidst the heavy footsteps, Garen watched the teacher slowly go upstairs. In fact, he didn't expect that this incident would be such a big blow to the teacher. There are actually cases in the world where people have achieved master-level precision drawing in a short period of time. And there were quite a few, so he dared to show it out so directly, hoping to get the qualification to learn the technique as soon as possible. But I didn't expect that this teacher Aining, who thought he was a genius, would be a heavy blow to the soul. It's just a slap in the face. Sitting on the sofa on the first floor, Garen didn't know what to do and could only wait quietly. I don't know how long it took, but the sky outside began to darken. The sun gradually set and the sun became more golden and red. The sound of footsteps slowly came from the stairs, and Aining walked down step by step again. His face regained its calmness, and he slowly walked to the opposite side of Garen and sat down. I have figured out that there are always some people in this world who have extraordinary talents in a certain field. but they only start at a higher level than the average person. Those who can really make it to the end require only a small part of the talent. It's more about perseverance, and determination to never give up, he said seriously, thanks to you, Shia. Call me Garen, teacher. I ran out secretly, Garen quickly replied. Okay, let's call you Galen. Aining nodded. Your talent, at least in the field of precision cartography, is something I have never seen before. Can you show me the action you just made? Garen nodded. Raise your hands and easily make more than 10 practice gestures. It only took a few seconds. An average of 3 per second. Aining watched quietly. Although his face was calm, his eyes were filled with wonder. With such qualifications and your talent in precision cartography, it's terrifying that it only took you less than 2 months from the beginning to the present. Garen nodded. Then, can I learn the technique from you? Of course, Aining nodded solemnly. You are tired from traveling today. Let's take a rest here. Tomorrow we will officially start learning the true essence of our Silver Lantern masters, the techniques. Yes, teacher, Garen nodded. Your room is the master bedroom on the first floor. You wash in the water room and eat and drink in the kitchen and dining room. No problem. No, teacher, I am not a spoiled young master, Garen smiled. That's good, I'll go up and rest for a while. Aining nodded, turned, and walked towards the stairs. He stood at the corner of the stairs and heard Garen's footsteps walking towards the master bedroom behind him, and then he took a few steps up to the second floor. Entering the study room on the second floor, he locked the door tightly, then walked to a mahogany bookshelf and pulled out a white notebook on the far right. Sitting at the desk with his notebook in hand, he carefully lit the oil lamp with a match. He picked up the quill, dipped it on the edge of the ink bottle, and then gently wrote a line on the open notebook. Perhaps it's fate that favors me. I didn't expect that when I was approaching 90 years old, I would meet a student with such a terrifying talent. This is my luck and your luck too. Lazia, I will impart all my knowledge to him. Maybe in my lifetime, there will be hope of integrating my lineage. Aining thought for a while, then picked up the pen again and started writing at the bottom. Do you still remember the dream you talked about when we were practicing gestures under the vines when we were children? Of the original 5 companions, now I am the only one left. Life is so gorgeous, but time will eventually make people grow old. As he wrote this, a hint of complexity appeared in Aining's eyes. Lazia, what would you do if you were still here? He picked up his pen and wrote the last of these 2 paragraphs. 2. The person who once brought me happiness. Closing the notebook, he looked out the window at the gradually dimming grassland scenery, and did not move for a long time. I'm asking for votes. Don't forget that the votes in your hands are not cast. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 252. Garen hurriedly found some white bread in the kitchen, and then washed the dust off his body with water. Returning to the master bedroom, he unceremoniously took out a yellow-green robe from the closet and put it on. He threw the clothes that were too dirty to wear into the water room and rested comfortably for the night. Early the next morning, Galen got up early before dawn. When he arrived in the small living room, the little girl was already busy working. Apparently she also had a key to the house. He sat on the sofa and watched the little girl bring him a plate of apple slices and bread, as well as a cup of steaming white goat's milk. Please eat. The little girl preferred to perform a rough and non-standard etiquette, turned around and hurried towards the kitchen. Galen picked up the goat milk and took a sip. The taste inside was very strange. It seemed that something had been added. It had a slightly fishy smell and was very sticky. He raised the glass and took a closer look at the goat milk. A faint hint of egg yolk could still be seen in the white milk. Suddenly, there were slight footsteps at the top of the stairs. Aining came down from the second floor, wearing a grey robe and a relaxed expression on his face. He seemed to be in a good mood. He walked to Galen and sat down, picked up the bread slices from Galen's plate and bit off one piece in one bite. "How's it going? Are you resting well?" "Very good, teacher," Garen nodded. "That's good," Aining nodded. "From today on, we will speak in your Green Forest dialect. This town is isolated from the world. Apart from the common language of the Empire, they only have their own dialect. For other places, I can't understand the language at all. And your Green Forest dialect is very different from the public language. It's simple enough to keep it secret." "I have no objection," Garen nodded quickly. "Okay, let's start now," Aining said the last half of his sentence directly in the Green Forest dialect, which sounded very standard, which surprised Garen. "So, teacher, how should I learn the technique?" Garen asked formally. "Spell." Aining pondered for a moment, as if he was organizing his words. At this time, the little girl Ning Ning came over with Aining's breakfast, carefully placed it in front of him, then silently bent her knees, turned and left. She wiped her hands clean on her black apron, opened the door and left the building, closing the door gently. "Looks very sensible." After the little girl left, Aining picked up his goat's milk and said while drinking it, "Spells are the foundation of the Silver Lantern Master and the foundation of all the Silver Lantern Master's abilities. You must first remember this." He reached into his goat's milk cup unseemly, dipped some milk in it, and scratched it gently on the table. Soon, a round ball-shaped object appeared on the table. The inside is also divided into several small blocks. You should know that Science Illustrated discovered a long time ago that living things are composed of very tiny cells. Aining retracted his index finger. Cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs, and organs combine to form systems, and systems finally it constitutes the whole of living things. You should know this, right? Of course. This is the basis of biology class, we have learned it before. Garen nodded. Actually, our technique is the same as this one. It is equivalent to the cells in the living body. They form tissues, then organs, systems, and finally form our own totem. This is the path you will take in the future. And answered simply. Spells are what we call units. In professional terms, they are unit spells, which form totem creatures based on the spells. Every Silver Lantern Master builds his own totem in this way. There are no exceptions. Teacher, if you put it this way, there are countless cells in a living thing. If totems come from this way, wouldn't the number of spells required also be extremely large? Garen frowned. This is the core of what we are going to learn. You must first learn the most basic structure of the spell, the active unit. This is the basis of everything. Aining said seriously. In the future, you will use the active unit to build your own tissues, organs, systems, and even your true biological totem. That's all you have to do. It's a huge project. Even though Garen's martial arts training in his previous life had reached its peak, he couldn't help but feel a little frightened at this time. The number of cells in a living being is often measured in trillions. It is impossible to build a real building with keys one by one in his lifetime. Totem. What? Are you discouraged now? Aining said with a smile. Aren't you a genius? Can't you bear such a small blow? Since so many Silver Lantern Masters can have their own totems, it means that there must be a pattern among them. Garen answered affirmatively. Not bad. Aining nodded approvingly. Okay, let's have breakfast first. I'm just going to tell you the path you're going to take in the future. You'll have to learn how to use the tools later. Indispensable tools for the Silver Lantern Master. Good. The two speeded up and stopped talking. After quickly finishing their breakfast, they went up to the second floor together and walked into a neat white room that looked like a laboratory. There is a huge long table in the room. It occupies half of the entire room. There seems to be something placed on the table. It is all covered with black cloth and cannot be seen. Aining closed the door and locked it. Then he walked up to the black cloth and lifted it hard. Wow! The black cloth fell to the ground, revealing what was covered up underneath. Garen took a breath. There was an expression of disbelief on his face. An extremely delicate and complex instrument was placed on the entire table, and the instruments were all made of silvery transparent metal. In an area the size of a palm, you can see hundreds of light silver metal parts, slowly rotating with the gears. The details of the instrument are extremely fine, giving people a pure, cold, and exquisite beauty. The entire instrument is like an extremely delicate large toy, which continuously rolls a drop of mercury ball from left to right, from high to low, and finally drops into a silver cup. The instrument that is 5 to 6 meters long and wide is inlaid with thousands of fingernail-sized parts, which looks extremely precise. Enon walked to the instrument. There was an unprecedented solemn look on his face. What I want to introduce to you next is one of the two essential tools for a silver lighting engineer, the unit factory. Unit factory, Galen repeated, his eyes fixed on the instruments that were still working quietly. Yes, as the name suggests, it is a factory that produces units. Aining nodded and replied, this instrument is a unit factory that produces my special totem, the white bear. He paused. I said before that totem creatures are composed of units. Your father is also a silver lantern master. You should have seen the form of a totem, so I won't say more. And active units are the basis of everything. When you are a silver lantern master, when the active unit of a certain creature is researched, it can be copied in large quantities through the unit factory, and then form a higher level structure step by step, and finally form a totem. Simply put, it is a tool used to copy basic units in large quantities. After that, make up tissues, organs, systems, and then totems. He covered the instrument again with black cloth. You will also have this in the future, and you must have this. Let's look at the second tool. He walked over to a small table in another corner. This is a complete set of tools. Before the unit factory produces a copy of the active unit, where did the active unit come from? It is up to the silver lighting engineer to find it himself. Searching, Garen was slightly startled. Isn't it a fixed research model? For example, teacher, your white bear, can't I build it? There is also this kind of thing. It is the simplest way to learn from the totems that have been researched and then build them. Aining nodded in approval and said, it's good that you can notice this. These are different silver lantern masters. The stronger and richer the knowledge inheritance is, the more powerful the totem is. Therefore, every silver lantern master is extremely conservative about his knowledge, because knowledge represents power. Enning paused and continued, since you are my student, you will naturally follow the path that I am good at, but what I am good at is not just white bears, but also other totems. Let's not talk about that now. He pointed to a white microscope-like instrument sitting on the table. This is a microscopic microscope that can magnify objects for detailed observation. The magnification is 800 times or less. It is a medium-quality product available on the market. Here are petri dishes, tweezers, magnifying glass, dissecting needles, tripods, and asbestos nets, alcohol lamp, test tube clamps, razor blade tweezers, glass slides, cover slips. Aining introduced the whole set to Galen. Garen looked at this extremely familiar scene. This is exactly the microscope and a complete set of simple experimental equipment on Earth, he mentally compared. At the end, Aining said with a sigh. Unfortunately, my funds are limited. Recently, the Royal Alliance has launched a new instrument, and I do not have enough funds to purchase it. He stood at the small table. Those are the two sets of tools that a silver lighting artist must have, which are things to study and copy active units. That is to say, the active unit is the core of everything, so where does it come from? Garen wondered. This issue is very core. Aining nodded in approval. the sources of active units are all kinds of strange, and there are countless creatures in nature. By studying powerful creatures, the Silver Lantern Master has gained the ability to use silver to imitate them. Our active units, in fact, they are derived from various natural creatures. All kinds of creatures in nature. So, in theory, any creature can be copied into a totem by the Silver Lantern Master. Garen became slightly interested. Of course. As long as you study thoroughly enough and understand the cellular secrets of the organism you are studying, then you can copy it into a totem as you wish. Aining smiled and nodded. Of course, everyone's energy is limited. If you want to study everything, if you are not specialized enough, then what awaits you will be nothing. Your totem cannot even beat the most ordinary Silver Lantern Master. You should pay attention to this. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 253. I understand. Many Silver Lantern Masters specialize in studying the totems of a certain system from generation to generation, developing the system to a very high level and becoming stronger and stronger. So unless they are peerless genius researchers, there is no Silver Lantern Master able to catch up with the accumulated achievements of these people from generation to generation without being distracted. Garen nodded clearly. As long as you understand. So what you have to do now is to first learn how to use these two sets of equipment. Especially the unit factory. You will also have to build your own unit factory in the future. Otherwise, don't even think about building your own totem, Ning warned solemnly. Yes, Garen suddenly seemed to be back on Earth, listening intently to the teacher's lecture. Aining began to teach Garen in detail how to use the two sets of tools. The latter also listened extremely carefully and attentively. But after the actual operation, Aining felt regretful. Galen's talent in precision cartography was indeed terrifying, but his understanding of using the two tools was still somewhat lacking. For this reason, he sighed many times to express his depression. But soon he could no longer sigh. Operating two tools, a microscope for research is nothing, but the unit factory does consume a lot of energy and energy. Garen squatted awkwardly in front of the sophisticated factory, carefully following its manufacturing process step by step. It takes at least an hour to make this thing in one cycle. Without concentration and following the mercury ball, it is difficult to see clearly the manufacturing process of the entire factory. And during this period, we will master the actual operating timing and methods. Teacher, I didn't understand this point clearly. Let's try it again. Okay. An hour passed. Teacher, please repeat this. Good. 2 hours passed. Teacher, I was a little too heavy-handed. There will be trouble again. No problem. 3 hours have passed. Teacher, I'm a little nervous and my hands are quick. Come again. 6 hours later. Teacher, I was so excited that I didn't pay attention to the fourth node. Come again. Aining looked at Garen's cheerful and energetic face. The two masters and apprentices looked at each other silently. Goo 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 goo. There was an owl hooting outside the window. Teacher, what's wrong with you? Garen was stunned for a moment and asked in a low voice. Goo. Aining's stomach made a dull sound. It's already so late. Garen then noticed that it was already dark outside the window. Have you always been so energetic? Aining was extremely complicated, looking at Garen's face with great interest and envy. It's okay, I'm young and have good physical strength. Garen smiled. Forget it, I'll bring you food, and you can continue alone. You should have seen clearly how I operate. Okay. No problem, Garen nodded. I'm sorry for asking you, teacher, to starve with me. It's okay. This is your first time coming into contact with this. It's normal for you to be so interested in it at the beginning. Aining waved his hand. In fact, he knew in his heart that ordinary people would get headaches as long as they are exposed to the unit factory for 2 consecutive hours. Dizziness and listlessness. This is because the light of silver can cause some subtle damage to the human body. If you stay in close contact for a long time, your body will not be able to bear it. And in a situation like Galleon's, he has been on it for more than 10 hours in a row, but he still doesn't feel any discomfort. This means that the time Garen can spend on this every day is several times that of other Silver Lantern masters. When Aining walked out of the laboratory, he once again had deep doubts about his own worldview. It seems that I have come into contact with too few Silver Lantern masters before he shook his head, sighed and walked downstairs, suddenly seeming to be a lot more rickety. After dinner, Aining couldn't stand it anymore and returned to the room to rest. Galen was left alone to study enthusiastically in the laboratory and control the unit factory again and again. He seemed to have returned to the state of concentrating on studying biochemistry classes on Earth. The terrifying God statue skill has two of its three most powerful advantages, resilience and endurance. It is most vividly reflected at this time. Before Enning went to bed at night, he saw the laboratory lights on. In the middle of the night, he got up to go to the bathroom and looked up at the laboratory. The lights were still on. Early the next morning, he yawned and came out of the bedroom. The lights in the laboratory were still on. The first time is inevitable, he sighed with understanding and heard the sound of galleons coming from the laboratory. Went straight downstairs for breakfast. Noon. Aining sat in the yard, lazily basking in the sun. The weather is really nice. He squinted his eyes and looked at the blue sky. The golden sunshine shone on my body, and I felt my whole body warm up. The little girl would rather hang out the newly washed sheets and clothes. Is Garen still upstairs? Yes, Sir Ning replied quickly. It's great to be young, Aining sighed. He has always taken good care of himself. If he hadn't been seriously injured in the last fierce battle, how could he have become so old? The sky gradually darkened. After dinner, Aining looked at Ning, who was clearing away the dishes. Is Garen still upstairs? Yes, Sir Ning replied quickly. Aining touched the beard on his chin and stopped talking. Night. Aining put down the novel in his hand and looked towards the second floor. Galen hasn't come down yet. It seems to be Sir Ning, who was squatting in front of the fireplace to add firewood, answered hesitantly. The third day. Day 4. Click. The door to the second floor laboratory finally opened. Ning Lan picked up the empty dinner plate placed on the floor by the door and was about to leave when he suddenly heard the door open. Turn around quickly. Mr. Galen. Teacher. Teacher, a black figure quickly rushed past her and went straight downstairs. Enon came out of the bedroom yawning. It's so early in the morning, why are you yelling? The black shadow immediately went upstairs and ran to stand in front of Aining. Surprisingly, it was Galen, who had been in the laboratory for 4 days. He frowned. Hold up, what's in your hands? Teacher, the lamp is out of oil. Enon let out a long breath. Go and rest when you run out of gas. You've been doing this for so long. What's the result? Did you fall asleep in there? I successfully mastered it, Garen grinned, showing his white teeth. Okay. 4 days is pretty normal, Aining nodded. Garen also breathed a sigh of relief. He already knew that he was not very talented in high-precision instruments like the unit factory. This thing required a high degree of concentration while performing coordinated calculations, and he was not used to it. Because the body's instinct has restored the conditioned reflex at the peak of hard Qigong, if you don't pay attention, a subtle vibration will come out. This is due to the fact that the body's essence, energy, and spirit have not been completely integrated and unified. Although the 4 secret skills can be used, it will take a little time to get used to it. It just doesn't affect the performance of martial arts strength. After all, his martial arts does not have extremely delicate moves, all are in the style of opening and closing. For 4 days, he basically stayed awake, occasionally eating a little food, and learned to control the entire unit factory in one breath. Had breakfast and took a rest. Aining was sure that Garin was in good spirits and showed no signs of rest, so he allowed him to demonstrate the operation process to him. In front of the laboratory door, there is a light silver horizontal line on the ground, glowing with a faint silver light. Enon and Garin crossed the silver line and walked into the laboratory. The horizontal line at the door is a small device for placing the equipment that mortals can see in this room. It is another application of the technique. It belongs to daily life applications. I will teach you slowly in the future. Aining walked to the front of the unit factory. Now, let me see the control methods you have mastered. Garin nodded. He stood at the far left end of the unit factory, picked up a small silver ball with tweezers in his right hand, and gently placed it on a slope on the factory instrument. Guru. The ball slowly rolled down the slide and fell into a silver cylindrical container. Soon there was a clicking sound, and translucent liquid suddenly flowed out from the 3 silver tubes connected to the container. The 3 streams of liquid dispersed and flowed in 3 directions. When passing through a small round arch passage, Garin instantly stretched out his hand and pressed on the round arch, as if adjusting something. The 3 liquids suddenly became much clearer, passed through the small arched door, merged into a conduit, and flowed into a metal device like a carousel. After the liquid had completely drained out, the carousel suddenly began to rotate slowly, making a crisp sound like wind chimes. Galen quickly reached out and adjusted some small switch knobs around the carousel, turning the multiple knobs to the most appropriate numerical positions. After the wooden horse rotated twice, he counted silently and reached out to adjust the knobs again. The speed was accurate at all. Snapped. The spinning stopped. A drop of thick silver water dripped from the center directly below, and the purple solution retort was aligned in the center. Puff. A plume of purple smoke suddenly rose from the retort, and the smoke continued to flow upwards along the retort, and got into a huge silver ball the size of a human head. Garin quickly walked to the ball and pressed his fingers quickly on a panel above, as if he was inputting some data. In just 10 seconds, he entered 20 numbers, forming combinations of different lengths. This is just the beginning. After more than half an hour, with a snap, drops of silver liquid finally dripped out from behind the ball and fell into the last big cup. These silver liquids look like silver sand, flowing slowly. It's like some kind of microorganism, with a slight squirming feeling. Successful Aining carefully looked at the silver liquid in the cup with satisfaction. That's right, there wasn't a single mistake in the process. Garin let out a long breath and then retracted his hand from the panel. Teacher, I have learned all the tools. What's next? You know how to use a microscope. This is much simpler. Galen walked to the microscopic microscope with ease, set it up skillfully, sucked out a drop of silver liquid, made preparations, and began to observe. Aining nodded with satisfaction. Okay, the preparations are done, let's start the first step. First step. You go to the wild alone and look for the totem creatures you want, bugs, beasts, birds, etc. Go ahead, let's start building from a simple level. But you still have to choose carefully, this will be what you will do in the future. The prepared totem creature relies on the direction. So it is best to be cautious when choosing the general direction, Aining said with a smile. Although I am not specialized enough because I study everything, and now I am just a mediocre ordinary silver lantern artist, but the advantage of this is that my students will get more development directions. You can pick one at random first. As a demonstration, I will show you how to build a totem, what steps are needed in the middle. What specific techniques are needed to build tissues, organs, and systems. I will show you one by one. Of course, except that the white bear is the inheritance, I have not studied the rest in depth. It's just enough to build a simple totem. If you want to improve, you can only do in-depth research on your own. Understood. Garin nodded understandingly. There are 2 types of totems, one core and one simple. Go now and look for a creature you want to make into a totem in the surrounding wilds. This will be the first simple totem I give you. Simple. The abilities of totems are very weak, but they will have certain benefits in your life, such as detection, cleaning, collection, or use as tools, etc.